Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 32nd episode of Mellow Musings. By this time, all of us are familiar, we should be familiar with what Mellow Musings is and what Mellow is. We have been busy with these Mellow Musings, with these online sessions every 2 weeks for more than a year now. And as I just mentioned, this is the 32nd. We have a long way to go. And Melow, as you know, is a platform that brings together young scholars and younger scholars. So I'm not saying old, but young and younger. The advantage is that you get to talk to each other, you get to exchange ideas, and in that process, you learn something. So this is a platform that you need to take full advantage of. And today we have someone who is really a man for all seasons. And those of you, the youngsters out here, who wish to be teachers, who wish to be scholars, will have much to learn from our speaker today, Professor Tej Nath Dhar. In conversation with him, we will have some of our young scholars who are all in the support group of Melow. By the support group of Melow, I mean that these are the kids, well, not kids, these are the young men and women who rise to the occasion whenever there is some work, they volunteer to take on responsibilities, and Melow continues to function mainly because of their dedication and commitment. So we are really, collectively, we are grateful to all of you. And Professor Dhar, thank you so much for joining us today. We also have on the screen Professor Anil Prasad, and I think we should have a session with him sometime in the near future. There are 4 other scholars out here who will be in conversation with Professor Dhar. There is Hemraj Bansal. Hi, Hemraj.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
So he's from Dharamshala, and twice he has helped us with a conference that we held there on his campus. Then we have Ishtiaq. Ishtiaq is from Indraprasth University in Delhi, and Ishtiaq is the one who designs all those glorious posters that we have, that we circulate every 2 weeks. He is helped by Asmita. Asmita is also on the screen. So Asmita is another volunteer who's been helping us a lot. And Snigdha, this is the first time she's coming onto the screen, I think. Yes, Snigdha?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you from, Snigdha? West Bengal?
No, ma'am. I am from Himachal itself. I am pursuing my PhD from Himachal Pradesh University.
Oh, Shimla, huh?
Yes,
So we have 2 Shimlites. I have noticed that we have a strong component of Himachali scholars, which is very good.
yes.
So I am going to hand over the proceedings to Hemraj Bansal. Hemraj, please
Yes, ma'am.
take over.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Uh, in fact, what I would say is that it is your leadership as president of Melow, which has been truly inspiring, ma'am. And it is your vision and your dedication which has significantly enriched this academic community and strengthened its global.
Hemraj.
No,
Thank you
really,
so
ma'am, I
much.
mean it, ma'am. I mean it. It has really strengthened its global presence. And then the scholars actually that we witness every time, taking part either in talks or coming for the Mellow conferences every year. That is a testimony to that, ma'am. And then one more thing that I want to say is that, well, if I'm not mistaken, this is the 32nd Mellow episode. And then it is something that you have carried on despite having a busy schedule, obviously. And then apart from that, say ensuring that speakers come, they speak, and then thereby the young audience, how they are enriched in the process, the young scholars, how they are enriched in the process. So I would say, ma'am, that you have really done a remarkable,
Hemraj,
remarkable
I cannot
job.
do it alone. It is people like you who support, huh?
Yes, ma'am,
People like
but
you
we
who
always
support and people like you who want to get ahead, huh?
but
I
we
No, I'm just the danda master, and I keep, enforcing the deadlines from time to time. So don't underplay your own support to the
No,
the
no, 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 no,
society.
no,
But
no, no.
let's get on. Let's
We
get
need,
on
we
with
need a,
today's
we
event.
need a leader like you, ma'am. So, well, good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome in today's session, which is titled "Meet the Professor." Now, it is being organized. I don't need to tell that, but yeah, it is being organized by the Society for the Study of the Multi-Ethnic Literatures of the World. Now, as I look at the title, Meet the Professor, now we also have something called in Conversation series, ma'am, which is in our university, and then Meet the Author. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we had one session with you. But then Meet the Professor, this is something which is quite new to me. So we are actually meeting a professor here, the professor, because we are meeting Professor Tej Nath Dhar. And at the same time, I mean, sir happens to be a teacher, a professor, but at the same time, a creative writer as well. So it is indeed a pleasure to have you all join us for this engaging academic interaction. And today's session, I'm quite sure it promises to be especially enriching as we are joined by an eminent scholar whose contributions to literature and research span decades. So, Professor Tej Nath Dhar is currently associated with the Chitrakoot School of Liberal Arts at Shulini University as a professor. He completed his postgraduate studies in economics from Agra University and in English from University of Jammu. Later, he earned a PhD in American fiction from Banaras Hindu University in 1975. Over the years, Professor Dhar has reached several significant academic milestones. He was a UGC Junior Research Fellow at Banaras Hindu University between 1973 and 1975, and subsequently, he received a Fulbright postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Southern California during 1987-88. He was also awarded the Middle Award, if I'm not mistaken, by the American Studies Research Center in 1988 and 89. From 1990 to 1993, he served as a fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Study and later worked as a senior fellow with the Ministry of Culture, Government of India from 2010 to 2012. I hope I'm not wrong, sir. His teaching career has been equally distinguished, with appointments at institutions such as University of Kashmir, HPU Shimla, and University of Asmara, where he also served as Dean of the Faculty of Arts. Professor Dhar's research spans diverse areas, and those diverse areas, they include American literature, Indian writing in English, African literature, Canadian fiction, and post-colonial studies. He has supervised numerous MPhil and PhD scholars and has made substantial contributions to academic writing with over 50 research papers published in national and international journals, more than 450 book reviews, and various creative works. Now, when it comes to creative works, so Professor Dhar has authored books which include History Fiction Interface in Indian English Novel, Under the Shadow of Militancy, The Diary of an Unknown Kashmiri, and The Tale of a Beleaguered Soldier, a novel. In addition, Professor Dhar has also edited 14 volumes, which obviously reflects his strong editorial expertise as well. So today, we look forward to gaining insights from Professor Dhar's vast experience, his intellectual journey, and his perspectives on literature and research in a obviously Indian context, but obviously also in a global context as well. So uh, let us extend a warm welcome to Professor Tej Nath Dhar. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. We are truly delighted to have you with us this evening.
My pleasure.
So, sir, as Manju ma'am also said in the very beginning, we have got these young scholars with us today who will be interacting with you along with me, obviously intermittently putting in questions and then moderating the session. So the first one to begin with is Asmita Sharma. So Asmita, you can put your queries across. Over to you, Asmita.
Darsa, would you like to say something before she begins the conversation?
Well, I think we have spent a lot of time already. I would say that I'm very happy to be with all of them here, including you. And it's a real privilege that I should be talking to so many people. And I must say that I look forward to a very pleasant interaction. The only thing is, my only fear is that they should not ask too many difficult questions. Asmita.
You'll manage. You'll manage.
Okay, if you say so.
Yes, Asmita, you can go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Evening.
My name is Asmita. I am a research scholar in the Department of English, Himachal Pradesh University, Shimla. And it is truly an honor getting this opportunity to talk to you this evening. Am I audible?
Oh, perfect.
Yes, you are.
So, Professor, if I may begin on a slightly reflective note, since I am quite new to the field of research myself, I often find myself wondering what truly shapes a scholar over time. And I would like to ask you, when you look back at your journey as a scholar, as a researcher, what do you identify as some of the key intellectual and personal turning points that influenced you? Were there moments of doubt or redirection along the way that in hindsight proved essential to your growth?
I think to start with, let me clarify one thing. The kind of attention people pay these days to children when they are growing, deciding with them what they should do, what is the kind of line of inquiry they should follow, what is the kind of career they want to choose for themselves. I think I remember in my day, not many people were bothered about this. If anything would happen, sometimes it would happen even accidentally. For example, this is something unbelievable that when I was growing up as a small child, my parents did not think it very important that I should be sent to school because one person lived in our house who was a private tutor. So he told them, why should you send him to school? I will teach him at my home, at your home. He doesn't need to go. But at one point of time, they said, well, if he doesn't go to school, then how will he take the exams? So they said, okay, let us now send him to the school and let us see what he will do there. So when I was taken to the school, the headmaster told me, what have you learned till now? I said, I have learned this, that, and the other. He said, okay, we will give you a test. They gave me a test, and you will not believe it. I was straight away put in class 6. These days we have lower KG, upper KG, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't see all of that. Straight away into class 6. Within 4 years, I matriculated. And then I went for my, after matriculation, it was difficult for me to decide what I should do. Although I had, till matriculation, I used to study science and physiology. But by the time I went to college, I decided that I should not pursue science at all. So I took up, in those days, it was called simple arts. That means you are taking subjects from humanities, but without mathematics. And that is how I did my FA, then I did my BA, and then there was a big problem. What to do after that? I'm telling you all these details because these are no longer relevant, but in those days they were very relevant. Now the question was, what should I do? I did not study English literature at all in my BA. I was a student of social sciences, history, economics, political science, and we had a very small portion which was called general English, in which we would study a prose text, and that was all. And then I wanted to do an MA in economics, so there was a problem. There was no economics in Kashmir at that time. At that time, there was only one university, which was called Jammu and Kashmir University. It had two campuses. One campus was in Srinagar, one was in Jammu. Later on, they became two different universities. And then it was decided, my father said, well, I can't afford to pay money for you to go to Jammu. We will all move to Jammu. And so that you will join the department and do your MA. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know how to describe it. I had an uncle living in Uttar Pradesh. He lived in Mathura. He said, there's a small college here, college, mind you, it was not a university, college. And they are teaching 3 postgraduate subjects, English, economics, and commerce. Why don't you send him here? So I went from a big city into a very small city and into that small college to study economics. And all the teachers there all the time spoke in Hindi. They didn't know how to speak in English. The only person who spoke in English was the principal of the college, who also happened to be an economist, so-called. And then after I completed my MA and came back to my home, I was found to be underage for doing a job. So my father told me that you have studied economics. Why don't you study English now? I said, I haven't studied anything. He said, you don't have to worry. Because in those days, the University of J&K had a rule that if you have an MA in one subject, you can go in for an MA in another subject without having studied it at the BA level. And that is how I studied MA English, in which I did fairly well. I scored a first class first, and university produced a first class after 10 years. And I immediately got a job. I became a teacher, and that is how my career started. And from the state college, I moved within a year's time to engineering college, primarily because the salaries were better there. I'm telling you considerations. And then in the engineering college, I felt at one time that you can't be all the time in an engineering college if you have to go and be a teacher all the time, then you should do something more. And fortunately, at that time, the college had a provision for allowing people to go on study leave. And that is how I went to Banaras. And I joined there as a research scholar. But before going there, I met my supervisor a year before that. And I discussed with him the kind of things I was interested in. And in those days, American literature was supposed to be the in thing. And it was one of the special papers we did at the MA level. And that is how I did my PhD in American fiction. And then started moving here and there. In 1990, we had to leave. Then I went to HP University as a visiting professor, and then I continued with doing lots of things after that. Now, why I'm telling you all these details is that most of the things that happened in my life were not pre-planned. For example, when I left Srinagar in 1990, before that, I had gone to America and I had a proposal for writing a book of a certain kind, for which I worked for 3 months collecting so many materials, manuscripts, and notes from a library there in South Pasadena, which did not allow you to take even a pen with you. You had to use only a pencil. And I spent so much time taking notes from things which I could never get anywhere else because they were unpublished materials. And I was trying to complete a book based on my PhD, and then a book subsequent to that, which was supposed to be some kind of my subject in PhD was a writer who was not very well known in those days. Even now, probably not many people know about him. He's called Nathaniel West. But West was very influential, and therefore there was what I felt could be called as the Westian mode in American fiction, which grew in 1960s in the days of counterculture. I brought books from there, I got notes from there, and all of them were lost in Kashmir in 1999. And when I came from there, I got a fellowship in the institute. They told me, look, no American literature here, you have to do something else. We can allow you to do an interdisciplinary study or only work in the area of Indian writings. And that is how I took a project on history fiction, which means that even that happened quite accidentally. And so many things happen like that accidentally. But I'm sure these days we don't have so many accidents of that kind. Many people plan beforehand what they should do, how they should move about. But in those days, things were different. I don't know. Some people say that was good, but I'm not too sure right now. But then so many things happened to me because the conditions changed. For example, in 1990, when I was still there, there were three things which we were about to do in the department, because by that time I was already a professor in the department. We had a plan to start a Canadian center for which we were going to hold an international conference in Srinagar. We had a plan to have a collaboration, very large collaboration with British Council, which will allow people from the department to go and visit British universities. We also had a plan for some kind of a Commonwealth body there. But all of them evaporated because I had to leave the place. Another accident. It was a very serious, major change in my career as such. Asmita, did I answer your question satisfactorily?
Oh, yes, sir. And in some sense, then we can say that uncertainty, or what you call these accidents, they are indispensable to the making of a serious scholar or a serious person for that matter. These are what shape our future, and we cannot have everything under control.
I should also mention, I worked in Africa for 10 years, from 2007 to 1997 to 2007. Although they would have wanted me to continue there, they were very supportive of whatever I was doing there. But then my wife wasn't feeling too well there. She had problems for which there wasn't enough medical care there. But in spite of that, I went to Eritrea after that 3 times on short and long programs. I did a lot of programs for them from my home. I produced those 14 volumes that are being used by now as texts in that place. I also wrote a very comprehensive encyclopedia, sort of a companion for the kind of volumes that I did with them. And then one day, I was attending this Melow conference in Chandigarh. Then Manju said, why don't you come with us to Shulini? There was a seminar called Literature Borders. What was that, Manju?
Literature Without Borders. It was just a one-day seminar.
One day, I know. And that one day turned into some kind of an entry into Shulani University, which I continue to be in. Although I spend only one semester there, rest of the time I am home. But one semester I do go from August to December. I stay there. So that was another happy accident, which came quite late in my life.
Life is very unpredictable and it takes you where it has to.
Yeah, that's
And you're right that today everyone plans everything in advance, but how many of those plans really are fulfilled? That's another question.
that's true. But at
We
least
have
you have some kind of thinking.
Mhm. We have
I know.
Snigdha also. Snigdha, you're not on the screen.
Ma'am, I'm here only.
Yeah, Snigdha.
Yes, ma'am.
You want to jump into the conversation?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, while I was listening to sir, and there were many things that were very interesting. So one of the thing that was there was that you said that when you were studying, there was not I would say a great interest in humanities, and you did not choose maths with arts, and that basically intrigued a lot many people. So how did you kind of cope up with it, or what was it that was going on inside you that basically pushed you forward to pursue what you were doing despite the your parents, your society not basically accepting it fully? Also, another thing that was there, sir, was in context to your experience itself, that you were talking about the trajectory that you had throughout your life of your career. So, we see that today people have become very result oriented. So, the academia itself is not untouched by it, and it has become very utilitarian in that sense. So, how would you defend, the value of literary studies in today's context? Also, for young scholars like me, there is a question that arises, that is, in this world where there's a lot of information, a lot of avenues, what is it that we hold on to, and what is it that we let go of? In this place for our research to be relevant and not too overpowering as well.
I didn't get you the trust. What was the trust of your
So the trust was
question?
that you, yes, sorry, sir. So actually, I was listening to whatever your journey has been. So there was this question that came to my mind. That is that as you've experienced a lot of things, so in today's world where there is the population is actually, or the youngsters are actually result oriented, they want results very, very fast, and the academia is also, I would say utilitarian in that sense. So, what is it? How would you defend the value of literary studies in this world? From your experience. Also, the thing is that what do we hold on to, and what do we let go of as young scholars?
The very idea that if it's mechanical, then I think there should be some kind of something in it that should ease that kind of mechanical attitude. I don't know if you know this. In 1960s, uh, I taught in an engineering college for about 7, 8 years. And one of the things that the engineering colleges tried to do at that time was that they should develop departments of humanities and social science because they thought that there is a likelihood that if people study only physics, chemistry, math, and engineering, then they might become insensitive towards the needs of people in society. In order to give them a little dose of what you call as humanities, they should be given a little bit of literature, they should be taught a little bit of social science, they should be taught psychology, sociology, and things of that sort. I remember I used in the college of I taught Bernard Shaw's play Arms and a Man to semester one. Then we had even Hardy's tests we used to teach, because the kind of problems that Hardy's test has, they were so close to the kind of problems that we were facing at that time. In fact, even now, new rich coming into being who are without any values, who are without any compunction. Remember the kind of suffering that Tess goes through because there is that brute who wants to exploit her. We have a very good principle there. And he was a man of humanities. So he told me that these are the kinds of texts that are relevant to people here. They should understand how societies function, how people can be exploited, and then they should have, we should try to develop them in such a way that they have sympathy towards people around them. And that was the way in which we justified the teaching of humanities and arts. I don't think that we need to overemphasize this. This is quite clear to me, even now, that if you don't allow people to read literature, don't, it doesn't necessarily mean all literature of any kind. It's not possible for them to comprehend life in its vastness as it should be. It's very important that if you want to develop these feelings of sympathy towards people, capacity to understand, diversity in thinking, literature is a good thing for them. Of course, there are so many other advantages of reading literature. Don't forget this, that one of the ways in which the colonial people asserted themselves was through their writings. Remember Achebe and Gogi and others. They were all writing for their own people, making them understand that the kind of colonial imposition they were facing could be fought. And the kind of impression that the colonials had created for them to suit their interests had to be understood in its context. These kinds of things are important. And if people don't read, what do we do? That's the whole problem. In fact, there was a crisis of this kind in America also. In 1960s and 70s, there was a crisis of humanities. People who were studying humanities, their percentages were falling. I'm sure you know that. Fortunately, Derrida came to help to revitalize the departments by giving a very famous lecture in Johns Hopkins University in 1960s. And then we had this new giant theory coming, which in a way, according to me, also has harmed reading of literature. Because now we don't read literature, we are only imposing things from outside at literature. Mining other things. See, literature is used as a mine with the help of which you are trying to do other things, not the kinds of things that it is normally supposed to do.
Yes, sir. So there was another little question that I had in my mind. That was, we were talking about Derrida, we were talking about reading, and we're talking about mining literature. So one of the thing was that how do we distinguish good reading from a great one? And also when we're reading, how do we avoid, over interpreting a text so that, we are still original, but at the very same time, we have our own views as well.
Yeah.
We've lost your voice, sir.
Yeah. Is it?
Now
Yes,
you're
please.
back.
Actually, this flat is opposite the old airport, which is run by the army now. So whenever the plane moves above us, then there is a disruption in this voice. Yeah, sorry, I missed your question because of this noise.
Yes, sir. Sir, as we were talking about reading, so there was this question, little inquiry that what is it that distinguishes good reading from a great one? Also, how do we avoid over interpreting a text so that we're original at the very same time we are close to the thinking of the read or the writer as well? Means something that we can do to avoid over interpretation of a text.
I
Can't
think,
hear you, can't hear you.
wait a minute. I'm just trying to recall in 19th century, the kind of criticism that was of literature was called as public criticism. And most of the critics were called public critics. They were men of taste, they were men of learning, and they had read a great deal, and they brought that knowledge, read other books, and then they would give their opinions about them. And many people towards the end of the 19th century did not like that. And it happened mostly because by that time, literature made its entry into the academy. Literature became a subject to be taught in Oxford and Cambridge. I'm sure you know that, but it happened very late. It was introduced in Oxford around 1980s, sorry, 1890s, yeah. And I think Cambridge, it was introduced something like 1910. It's not very old. And because students have to be given an exam, so they said, what will we do? How will we examine them? You can't ask them to write about how Shelley used to chatter. These are the words which were used by one of the professors of history. And therefore, they started writing. They said, well, what we can create is a body of writing. And on the basis of that, we will train people that they should also do this so that we are able to generate enough material that people can use for taking exams. And that's how we have the beginnings of the new criticism, textual study, and then you going very deep into it. Even that was okay. We were all the time committed to what is in the text, what is called a generic study of the literature. As when we are studying a short story or a tale or a novel, we want to see it, what is the kind of frame within which this piece of literature comes into being. But now what we are trying to do is that we are imposing most of the time something from the outside to read. And that is where we have the problem of interpretation and over-interpretation. And this is something which is dictated, I must understand. I think you know it very well. It is dictated by the pressure of the academy. After all, if you have to say something new, there must be a way of saying it. And for that, you have to buy things from somewhere else. And that's why now we have the Marxian reading, we have the Freudian reading, now we have this reading, and now we have that reading. And every month, some new fellow comes into prominence, and then we have to read literature through him or through her. That's what is happening all the time. Personally, I don't like it, but if you are in academics and if you have to survive, then you have to do something to stay on. Otherwise, difficult to stay on.
So thank you, Snigdha, for your questions. Thank you, Asmita, for your questions too. And sir, very well and in a very a critical way highlighted and then pointed out the various aspects, right, of the question that you put forth. Sir, I just want to add that when it comes to literature or when it comes to the departments of humanities and social sciences, especially one thing that I came across when I was a student at IIT Roorkee, I did not find actually that as much space is given to literature as it is given to science, technology, and then other subjects as such. So uh, that is something which I noticed there. And then another thing that I found is that when it comes to most of let us say people coming from these disciplines, so it is a sort of value neutral line which is adopted. So that is where what you are rightly pointing out is that reading is very important, and especially reading literature is really very important because it is something which enhances our cultural understanding. And through literature, we actually go on encountering different societies, their histories, their traditions, etc. And this is something which is needed because it broadens our worldview and also helps us appreciate diversity. So, what I feel is the kind of problems that we are facing, in the world. So literature does present those very things to us in different ways from multiple perspectives as such. So your questions, they were, your answers as such, they are really very thoughtful. And then yeah, we are really getting a lot from this conversation as we are going further. So thank you for the questions, Nick, and thank you for the answers, sir. Now I move to Bhakti Vaishnav. Bhakti, please ask a few questions from sir, a couple of questions.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Uh, Namaste, sir. What I wanted to, the whole discussion about you going to the library, which did not allow you to take notes through, or carry pen even, and you have witnessed this whole paradigm shift of now books being digitalized and even being copied and plagiarized and all those stuff. And the other thing about reading and the skill that goes hand in hand with reading is writing. And being an academician, I feel that there is lot of pressure which is making people do mechanical academic research writing. So I was just curious about knowing your point of view in how do you see, or what are your views on research and the pressure of publication these days.
Years ago, I was appointed as an examiner for a PhD in some university. I don't want to name it right now. And one of the queries they made was, how many Scopus publications you have? I didn't know about
Yes,
Scopus
sir.
at all. When I asked one fellow, I said, yeah, what is this Scopus? You don't know about Scopus? I said, in our time, there is nothing like Scopus at all.
Right, sir.
So he said to me that Scopus is an indexing body, and Scopus actually chooses journals from here, there, or elsewhere, and then they are indexed as Scopus journals. But they don't always remain Scopus. Mind you, they can change also. I know there was a journal in Calcutta 2 years ago. It was removed from the Scopus list. So, problem now is that some universities have made it mandatory. For example, in our university, it's mandatory that if a student has to submit the PhD, along with, at the time of submission, they should have at least 2 publications, although the UGC has waived that requirement. But they still hold on to this. And at least, if not both, at least one should be Scopus indexed.
Yes.
In our days, there was only PMLA. Whatever many journals would be represented in the PMLA bibliography, and that was supposed to be the best thing. But now we have the Scopus thing. I am sure in some days, some new thing will also come up, because all the universities are very keen that they should get ranks. And for ranking, you have to have some kind of material in journals of this kind so that you are able to enhance your points. Just as when people are getting promoted in universities, they also have to have points. And one of the ways of earning these points is to publish in journals of this kind. And unfortunately, I found that there are not many journals in literature of scholars, very few, very limited.
Yes.
And pressure is there for people who are now into business of teaching. They have to follow this. They can't help. When the UGC for the first time decided that they should have at least 2 publications, you know what happened? There was a mushroom growth of journals all over the country, and they would give you just 1 month's time to write an essay and get it published and get 5,000 rupees from you, and then publication is ready. You don't have to
Yes.
bother anything. And UGC realized that this particular condition that they had put was only being exploited by people to earn money. Therefore, they abrogated this condition. But other universities don't do that because they think that if they don't push people to publish, then their ranking will fall.
Yes.
So the pressure is not that they want to add on to scholarship. The pressure is to maintain a rank. So for that, you have to work. What do you do? If you have to teach, otherwise you give up. Personally, because I have worked differently in my life, therefore I'm happy that I don't have to go feel that pressure. But then youngsters will have to feel that pressure because your future in any kind of workplace is determined by the kind of preconditions that they have for you are going up the ladder. And one of these conditions is scopes. I just today, a friend of mine, something on the LinkedIn in which he said, I'm very happy I have earned my research in Scopus has hit 1,000 something. I said, oh. And everybody is congratulating him that it has happened that you have been quoted by 1,000 people. But I personally think it doesn't work well that way. Personally,
Yes.
So if in good old days, for literature people, the best indicator of your work was that you would write a book or maybe an essay. Now you have to write a research paper, which is a new
Research paper.
nomenclature now. I don't. Personally, I'm not for it, but then that's
So
not the only.
let me intervene at this point. Let me intervene at this point.
Yeah.
You know, what is happening is that we are being, humanities literature people are being dominated by others who come from a different discipline and who feel that one size fits all. And
Yes.
one size does not fit all. You cannot judge the competence of a fish by its ability to climb a tree. It's a borrowed quotation, huh? You cannot do that. Another thing, you know, when you talk about data collection, when you what are you doing? You are actually quantifying knowledge. Okay, give me half a kilo of Shakespeare and maybe 2 kilos of publication and something like that. This is absolutely ridiculous. And the sad part is that even our senior people who are in a position to make decisions, who are in committees, they are unable to do anything or they are not willing to do anything because then they'll be shunted out of the committees. That is
Yes.
the sad part. People like me who don't owe a thing to any institution now can be, you know, blunt about it, can tell you what is happening. So those of you who are still working, who are still struggling, please carry on trying to publish in Scopus journals, but be aware of what is happening. And whenever you reach a position where you can make a difference, where your voice counts, then you must make sure that you try and change what is happening. Now, one more point I want to bring forward is that there is something that we at Melow are doing for our for our members. And what is it that we are doing? perhaps some of you know, we are organizing mini Mellows where we bring together essays which are anthologized and which will be published by top publishers, Springer, Routledge, or whatever. So this is something we are doing for our Mellow members because we have a certain commitment. And I know how you people are struggling. So at least we can help you a little bit. At least we can try. Anyway, let's carry on with this discussion. Back to you, Himraj.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I wanted to say something about it. This also leads to this question of research integrity and research ethics. So, like, the pressure, how one, I mean, we all feel and see this pressure of publication, and because of that, there is always, as we said, there is this, this deadline is given, and one has to produce this many essays or research publications by end of this year. So there is this whole mafia or racket rather that exists, which leads you to get published in Scopus. So I wanted to know sir's point of view. What does he advise us to maintain our sanity, or how one can maintain the research integrity when they are pursuing their research or academic interest in terms of writing?
That's a short answer to this.
Question is very simple. If you want to stay in the job where there's a requirement for producing an essay, you have to do it. That's all. You have no choice.
Yes. Yes.
Or else you do something else, depending on.
And there is something called the impact factor, which is always fabricated, which is always rubbish because there are all
Yes.
these spurious journals, and everyone knows what is happening and everyone has shut an eye to it. Well, that's the system that you are working in, and you have to find your ways of surviving.
In one university, a teacher asked the vice chancellor, "Sir, you are talking all the time about papers. If I write a book," he says, "Okay, once in a while you may, but we need papers." It means that
And not only that, the point that you
book
made,
doesn't
point
have
that
any
you made,
value.
the point that you
Book doesn't
made is
have any
very valid.
value.
The point that you made is very valid, that there are hardly any journals in literature which are scopus oriented.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know of universities which tell their faculty, okay, don't publish in your field, publish in another field. What can be more ridiculous? I don't understand. Anyway, let's get on with this. Yeah, no one.
Yes, ma'am. There are actually very serious problems with the publications nowadays. And then when we look at the scenario today, I mean, we keep on getting these phone calls that we provide research writing these services. We provide actually dissertation writing services. And then, interestingly, I got a call a few days back from Haryana. Some of the a teacher there, he called me and said that you just pay 15,000, and then we will be publishing with Routledge in just 2.5 months. Whereas the fact of the matter is that one article that I published with Sage, it took nearly 2 years for me to get that published without any money. So it is really very unfortunate that it is happening nowadays. So, but then, yeah, and when it comes to Scopus 2, it is primarily meant for, if I'm not mistaken, for people who hail from these other disciplines like physics, or for that matter, other technical subjects. So it is the quality of our paper actually which matters more, rather than actually succumbing to such pressures which are at times imposed by universities. So thank you so much for your questions, Bhakti, and thank you, sir, for responding so well. Now we move to Ishtiaq. Ishtiaq, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ishtiaq. So the stage is all yours. Please ask your questions.
Okay. Hello, sir. I have two questions. Just to add up to the previous conversations, you have been writing your entire life now, and I was just wondering. I mean, I'm sure that the writing has evolved throughout time, but I'm wondering about the process of writing. I'm curious about it. Like, does it change depending on the need of the times, the process, or even if you're talking about research papers or even books? So does it change according to the need of the times, the process, or the process remains the same, the subject and the theme changes? So how is it like when you're writing, throughout your entire life almost? Yeah.
Depends on several factors. For example, what are you writing for? Who are you writing for? And what is the kind of motivation that you feel to write? For example, when I left home in 1990, the experience of leaving home was so bad and it hurt me so much that I thought I should write about it. But the moment I would start writing about it, after one paragraph, it would be over. And I would say to myself, my story is so short that it can't survive you in a page. But then from inside, I knew that there was something that it should get out of my system. It was oppressing me so much. And fortunately, around that time, I was able to get a job outside. So I was away from this whole environment in which things had happened to me. And there I got some or experienced some kind of a peace. And then I thought, probably this is the kind of environment that will stimulate me to write. And I made it a point that I should continue to do that. And every morning I would spend at least an hour and a half regularly to write something. And that is how I wrote my first book, which is a creative book, in which I was trying to see this, in which I was trying to understand the circumstances which pushed me out of the home, and how there was a contrast between the kind of life that was there at that point of time and what the past was like. Therefore, it was some kind of a balance I was trying to make between the past and the present. So that was the part, creative part. But the academic part was that when I went to Africa, they told me, well, our priority here is that people should be made to understand, of course, other literatures as well, but there should be a lot of focus on African literature. And that is how I started reading African literature. And I also did some writing on African literature. I wrote on Achebe, I wrote on Guti, I wrote writers. And most of those things I got published in India because at that time, many journals which are now dead, they were still alive. So just as when I went to Shimla for the first time, I started writing on Indian writings. When I went to Africa, I started writing on African writings. When I came back, then I started writing on Canadian fiction and things of that sort, because these were the kinds of things that were now becoming more and more in demand at that point of time. Whenever you used to go to a conference or to some seminar, then they would say, we want this. If you are interested, you can write something for us. So where you are going to specialize, where you are going to present things, most of them determine what you want to do. Of course, apart from that, some people are very fortunate, they have a consistent line of development in research. So they will start here and they will continue it to their end. Maybe in between they will go straight to other fields left and right, but that is the field that they will continue to maintain. So you have these two ways, that you have to have one kind of a major area in which you want to specialize. Then you can also go around it into smaller areas here and there, depending on the kind of circumstances within which you have to work. there's nothing like a rule for that.
Okay.
Depends on, sometimes you read a new writer and you want to write about it. Very recently, I was told to write a review of a book. It is by a writer called Kaveri Nambasan. I hadn't heard of her except in passing. Then the person who asked me to do this review, he said, well, the editor of the journal said, I have found that Kaveri Nambasan is a good writer, but nobody writes on her work. Therefore, we have decided that this new issue of the journal will be exclusively on her writings. So we would want that instead of writing a review, you write a whole essay on her. And we are inviting 5 more people to contribute essays on her so that the journal will be exclusively on the work of Kaveri Nambasan. And that's what I did. Instead of writing a review, I wrote a whole essay. So this also happens because I was doing something and then that something got changed into something else. And that is how new opportunities get created for writing. If you wish to stay on writing, that's another issue that you have to decide. Should I continue to stay on? Several of my friends have stopped writing. They said, well, enough is enough. We want to stay at home and relax. I said, well, I can't do that. If I relax, I'm finished.
Thank you, sir. Just to shift the conversation from writing to reading, I was wondering that you must have read the syllabi which was there in MA or BA English years back, and you have also been actively making new syllabi.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, how canons have evolved throughout this time, because till now we read some literature which was read maybe 40 years ago in the curriculum, and we read those, and we have also like shifted in, like moving on from those to new literatures, to new contemporary canons, like for example the Gatsby or others, right? So I have 2 questions regarding this. How has the canon evolved throughout time, and what is the situation, what is the uh, current stage of the canon formation at this point of time? Like how do we immediately decide that okay, Arundhati Roy is a canon, or I'm talking about contemporary canons at this point of time. So these are the 2 questions I have on canon formation, how the canon has evolved and how it is seen in today's times.
Actually formed by the academy. I have no idea if you know, there was at one time a very distinguished professor in University of New York at Buffalo. His name was Leslie Fiedler. I don't know if you have heard of him. Leslie Fiedler at one time wrote a book, and the title of that book is What Was Literature? And when I looked at that book, what he was trying to argue was that so much of American literature, which should have been or which should have found a place in the academy, was not finding the place at all. Why? Because canon was decided already by people who were on top, and they didn't want that other writers who, according to them, did not deserve to be there should be there. I'm sure you remember at one point of time in the English departments, canon was what? T.S. Eliot, Samuel Beckett, and writers who were very difficult and complicated, and others were not being allowed entry at all. But possibly because of the advent of postmodernism, which led to the liberation of literature, if you might call it, or what some people call it as democratization of literature. Canon has expanded now. You can give courses on what is called detective fiction. You can give courses on ghost writings. You can give courses on anything now in America. I'm not sure about what we are doing here in these parts of the world, in this part of the world, But new interesting courses are coming on. Why? Because now people believe that it's not necessary that we should conform only to what is being taught there. You will be surprised to know that in many American universities, Shakespeare is not taught at all. It is, people have read it in high school and college. That is enough. And it is think of the past now. We should read something very current. In 1988, when I was in America for the first time, there was not exactly a friend, fellow teacher in the department there. He said, this semester, I'm going to give a course on 3 books. I said, what are those 3 books? They were 3 bestsellers that he was going to give a course on. I said, are you sure that people will join that course? He says, why not? These are books which are very much in the air right now. They are being sold in millions, and I'm sure many people want to read them. So here also, now many writers about whom people would never even imagine, they are also forming a part of the curriculum of many universities. So there has been, if you might call it, a liberalization of the canon. The old style canon was decided on the basis of the prestige that writers had enjoyed for some time, even if they were tough and difficult. Now, these things have changed. And it's a good thing that they have changed because new writers who may not be as known as the older ones, they are equally good and maybe more relevant to the times than the older ones.
Thank you, sir, for these wonderful insights into these questions. And then you spoke about canon actually. And then we have seen how canon formation has been quite political. And then what we imply by this is that when it comes to the process of deciding which literary works are considered important, classic, or worthy of study, it is not neutral. It has not been neutral. It is rather shaped by power. It is shaped by ideology, and it is shaped by social interests as such. So we have seen actually how literary canon, or when we talk about these great books, how they often reflected the values of those who had this uh, authority historically. And I am especially reminded of that famous book, Decolonizing the Mind. And there is one particular chapter there, which is The Quest for Relevance. And when I went to read on that quest of relevance, so what I found interestingly that the 3 lecturers at the University of Nairobi, they at that point of time pointed out that why should African students the read about Africa through the characters of Shakespeare as such? Why can't Africa be in the center as such? And one more interesting a point that I found there was that there were nearly 53 literary works which were prescribed, and there was only one out of those 53 which was written by an African author. So, but you rightly pointed out, sir, that it is because of these voices which eventually came up. That what we found was that, well, there was actually this liberalization of canon as such. So there was more and more accommodation as such. So thank you so much, sir. The insight was really very engaging, and thank you, Ishtiaq, for your questions as such. So, sir, we now move on to the closure of this episode, this conversation with you. But prior to it, I just wanted to ask one question, if you allow. Now, it is something which pertains to your 2 creative works which are based on Kashmir as such. And then it is something wherein obviously the personal experience which goes on shaping the writing. And then I didn't read actually this the tale of a beleaguered soldier novel, but then I read a few reviews So what you say, what the character says rather at the at the end of the novel is, he says, Swamiji actually, what Swamiji says is that Manav, the moment your people are out of their ancestral place, they cease to be beleaguered soldiers. They grow and flourish. But the sad truth is that you are unsafe in what you claim is your home state. You have been like that in the past, and you will be also in the days to come. So that these are the words actually which are put in the mouth of Swamiji by I mean in that novel by you, sir. So I just wanted to know, sir, that we have got this term called myth of return. And William Safran has written that essay, Diasporas in Modern Societies, Myths of Homeland and Return. What would you like to say about this, sir, when it comes to returning to the place that was once yours, but is no longer safe?
The question is, how do you return to your place? Only when you know that your return is guarantees that you are being there safe. I mean, the kind of mistrust that has grown there is enormous. It's not possible for people to go and stay there just like that.
Right.
Besides, what will they do? If you look at the kind of job opportunities in the state, you'll be shocked to know that even the local Muslims who are there right now, they are not able to get jobs there. Because the number of people who are qualified to get jobs in offices or in schools or in colleges, the numbers are so large. Shulini has 5 teachers and they can't get a job in their home. So they are in Shulini. And I know there are so many of them, they are in different parts of India working. Bangalore is full of people here. So many doctors work here because they don't get a job there, because there are no jobs. Well, what do you do there? Well, anyway, even if I wouldn't bother about the job, the question is, do you feel safe and happy? I don't feel safe. Not many people feel
Right,
safe.
sir. Right, sir.
And that is why when we go on hearing from people, now we will do this and do that, that is why this young man asks, please tell me now, because you have this capacity to know future. So he says, well, whatever you might say, I don't see any future for you there. So that's what it is. And I had this feeling that in our own future generations might not even remember, might not even know what it was like there. And one of the temptations of writing this novel was to create some kind of a historical account, which would give at least some idea to people to know what it was like there.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning to the end, it has taken me lots of time to read and to know and to think, and whatever was desirable about Kashmir's past and present, all of that has been put in that book. It took me more than 10 years to do this job. Of course, because I had to do other things at the same time. That's why so much of time was needed. But the point is that someday, if somebody wants to know what it was like, then they should have something to read. And that was the primary motivation for writing a book like that. Dry historical accounts people don't generally read, and that's why we have to narrativize. We have to create a narrative. And because it was to be a very complex narrative, therefore it needed multiple voices also. I had to rewrite it so many times because the voice wasn't coming through. I had to change tenses here and there, personalities there. Many people who were there in that book I had to give voice to them also so that they speak on their own and not through an omniscient narrator or another narrative. That also I had to change. But home is a distant thing.
And I can say that because I have gone through the book very carefully, the amount of research that has gone into the book is amazing.
Yeah.
I have earlier compared your book with Dante's Inferno, Dante's Divine Comedy. You know, the kind of conversation that you have between Virgil and Dante, you have the same kind of conversation between your two characters in the book.
Yes, ma'am.
And what you have done is you brought in the entire history of Kashmir into it in such a manner that it becomes, you know, there is no bitterness there. That is what I found remarkable.
Yeah, exactly, ma'am.
Considering your personal experiences and the fact that you had to leave all of a sudden, and we can imagine how much the trauma must have been, but there is no sense of bitterness. It's all as if you are another Swamiji who can see that civilizations have to rise and fall, and those that build them again are gay. This is a book which I think all universities, all colleges must have a copy in their library. So we don't really have to go after Dante and after other writers from the West when we have our own writers who are doing a commendable job. Anyway, back to you, Hemraj. Prasad, Dr. Prasad, would you like to say anything? Would you like to give some comments on the discussion we've had so far before we wind
Good
up?
evening. Am I audible?
Yes, very audible.
I remember there was a session in 2021
Mhm.
on this novel,
Mhm.
Tale of a Beleaguered Soldier, and I felt that, and you said the same thing at that time about this
Yes.
comparison, and I felt like saying that there is a novel written by a Native American novelist, Leslie Marmon Silko,
Mhm.
Ceremony, and the
Correct.
character, Tayo, resembles the character in Beleaguered Soldier. So any person who is to take up a research can compare
Mhm.
these two novels.
Mhm.
I am very happy that I met on this platform Professor Dhar, because it's a learning experience
Yes.
hearing him about all the things. I have one question that when you are teaching a text as a novelist, as a professor in the class, do you find yourself judging it as a critic or a fellow practitioner? Where do these two roles clash?
I teach a course in tales across space and time. Do you hear me? Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir, you are.
A little bit louder, because there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I teach only one course in a semester, which is from August to December. That course is called Tales Across Space and Time. And in that course, I teach only tales, oral tales, then how they were converted into literary tales, and then how tales on their own came to be written later on by writers on the models which were provided earlier by the writers of these tales. So I don't see there a possibility of any kind of a clash, but the interest that, and my students are only students of BA, you don't expect them to be highly sophisticated. Their questions are very elementary. Their responses are also very elementary. Although I'm trying to make them understand that tales are very rich and they can also write the tales on their own, I do encourage them to exercise some kind of creativity, but I don't think they are too much interested in that. They just want to get a grade, and that's the end of it. And that's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
So
sir.
thank you, sir. So we had a very stimulating session this evening. And as we come to the end of this enriching session, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Professor Tej Nath Dhar for sharing his valuable insights and experiences with us today. And all of us have seen that, well, this conversation has really been, or truly been, very enlightening and thought-provoking. I would also like to express our heartfelt